Tanya, thank you so much for joining me. I am really interested in this topic about wearables and data and how we're using that data to ensure that Canadians live a healthier life. Tell me a little bit about some of the research that just came out from your organization.
Oh, I'd love to. First of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a topic that I love to talk about, especially because, like you said, the research is growing and people are so interested in what to do with all of this data. So we recently released the Blind Spot Canada's Health Data Paradox, as you mentioned. And what we found is that 88% of our members uncovered at least one previously undetected health risk that they could actually do something about. And I think that's really key, is the fact that they could take steps to change, reduce, mitigate this health risk. We also found that about 40% of Canadians use a health tracking device. So whether it be a ring or a watch, they are collecting this data, but it doesn't always get shared. And maybe if it does get shared, their clinician, only about 15% of, I think the study was based specifically on family doctors, actually looked at that data and were able to incorporate it into their care plan. I worked in primary care for quite a long time, and I was actually even surprised that it was that high, because when I think about a normal clinic flow, there isn't really like a place where that fits intuitively in how you run your practice. So I think that's really interesting as well. I could continue on and on about the fact that, like, we found a number of our members had kidney strain, again, early, actionable. 23% had early risks for diabetes. And we know from primary care, from healthcare, that if we can intervene early, sometimes it'll never actually progress to diabetes, or that at least we can prolong it for a significant amount of time.
It's so interesting because not only am I fascinated with this subject, and of course, like every Canadian, I want to see us have better access to healthcare in this country and preventative care as well, but also as someone who wears one of these devices. I've been wearing a Whoop band for many, many years, and I have a family member who also wore a Whoop band for a really long time. We had two totally different experiences. He brought in all of his data to his doctor, and his doctor was not interested in seeing any of it, whereas I brought my data into a surgeon that I was meeting with, and she was incredible. She asked for access to all of the data. I printed everything out for her. She took it and she helped bump me up in terms of getting surgery more quickly, because she was able to show the significant impact that the health condition I had was having on my life. And, totally different scenarios. And I think that's happening everywhere across the country.
I think you're right. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that as clinicians, we are taught to look and care about the person first, and then care about the data. And I think that's a really good approach to healthcare, right? We want to be people-centered. And then it's about what question or can we ask the data, and what information can we get from the data. And I think your surgeon is just such a great example of, she's aware of what the data could show, and she was aware of what question to ask it and how that would impact your future care decisions. I would love to meet her. She sounds very, very cool in the way she was able to integrate things you were doing at home with how you presented to her, and she moved you up in the list.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I think, a perfect example of someone who really understood that she obviously couldn't be with me 24/7, but I had this treasure trove in many ways of data that really expressed what I was going through. And I think it's fair to say, I look at my mom, for example. She's almost 82. She wears an Apple Watch. Like, when we talk about wearables, we're not talking about just sort of a narrow group of Canadians anymore. There is widespread adoption of these wearables that are collecting health data 24/7.
Yes, it's interesting that you actually bring up your mom, because I think some of our very, very first wearables were decades ago, and it was to detect falls risks, right? So we were able to actually have somebody called if you fell, right? It would call your daughter, or it would call your neighbor. And we've advanced so far from there, and we can pull so much more information about maybe what your heart's doing, what's your oxygen doing. So there's pulling data from the device, but then there's also using the data in your device to improve your health. And that's one of the things that we are working on right now actively in the thick of it, is how do we help our members and all Canadians understand how they can pull like their exercise information. So I don't know if you've taken a look at how it can break down your exercise information into like your different training zones.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So we will take that information and say, okay, well, when you're working in this training zone, we can it should be impacting your metabolic health, which should help to impact your hemoglobin A1C. And we saw in your last lab test that might be a risk, a diabetes risk in the future. So let's focus on that zone 2. And that is a really cool way for the individual to use it, so that not only are they providing data out, but they're able to action their data every single day.
So what I think so fascinating about what you're doing right now, and I want to hear more about the company, is that I speak to a lot of tech founders, many of them in the healthcare space, but you have, like you've mentioned, that experience as a nurse working in healthcare, and now you're combining that with this experience at a technology company. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yes, for sure. So my background is I'm a nurse practitioner. I worked in family practice for over a decade. And what I found was that sometimes you could kind of see the writing on the wall that this person was going to be experiencing chronic diseases, maybe at a relatively young age. And you just felt like you couldn't quite intervene early enough. And I think part of that is because this is how healthcare works, and it's okay. It's supposed to work this way, but you're supposed to go in when you feel unwell or you have a problem. And when we founded NiaHealth, we really wanted to start before that, so that we weren't intervening once someone felt unwell or had a problem. You're intervening when you were going, oh, there's the writing on the wall. And how do I share that with a member in a way that is impactful to them? That it's not just me as the healthcare provider relying on a decade of experience saying there's writing on the wall, but they can actually own that information and go, oh, I see it too. Now I'm going to own how to action it with the support of a healthcare team that really has their interest in mind. And that sounds cliche, but what I mean by that is that when we are in a consult with one of our members, we're saying, okay, here's the data. What does your life look like? What's actually helpful to action this data? Because it's a very different conversation if someone has just had a new baby and they really can't sleep through the night. And we're saying, oh, if you could just sleep better, here's how your data would improve. Well, that's completely unrealistic. So by actually understanding their story, we can help them to action their data in a way that feels empowering, not impossible.
So what does the experience look like if someone becomes a member? What does it look like in terms of how you, I think, fill what I would see as a huge gap in healthcare today, which is sort of the connection between the data and, like you said, taking action on that data?
Yes. So if someone comes to NiaHealth, they are offered over 150 different biomarkers. So that can be lab-based tests, VO2 max, DEXAs. And then what we do is we collate that data along with their story, their health history, their wearable data, and we present it to them in a dashboard that they can navigate. And so that really is that ownership piece. That's been a huge learning for me, is that the way that we consume information is so different than the way we consumed information like even 4 or 5 years ago. And it really impacts people differently when they can see it in a way that is congruent with how they normally access information in their daily life, which is on a computer or on their phone, rather than being like handed a PDF saying, here are all your lab tests, right? This really resonates a lot more. And then from there in their dashboard, an action plan is created. And all of this is curated by a nurse practitioner, so by a member of my team. And then they meet with an NP for 30 minutes and are able to go through this information. And from there, we fine tune. So I often say to people, we do our best to make this personalized, but nothing quite beats sitting down with you and having you say, there's no way I'm doing that, or let me give you more context. And as soon as someone does that, you can just make it come to life in a different way for them.
So is this a replacement for someone's family doctor? Is it enhancement? Does it work alongside? I'm just thinking again, if we use the scenario of my mom, who's almost 82, she's on a wait list for a family doctor here in Prince Edward Island. And last time she called, I think they were clearing the list from a few years ago. So she figures she'll never have a doctor. So how does it fit into what Canadians are experiencing right now in terms of access to having a doctor in the first place?
One of my absolute favorite questions. As you know, I'm in British Columbia, so very similar stories, I think, to what you're saying with your mom's story. And it's really hard. Nia's not a replacement for your family doctor, your primary care provider. We really are aiming to try and complement and work alongside. And having said that, as people are struggling for access, we really do want to partner with them to help support them in making good choices about their health now, so that they can maybe avoid even needing to access the healthcare system super regularly in the future.
Yeah, I think, again, we need all the tech and innovation that we can get right now in Canada. There are shortages in every province and territory across the country. So certainly I think technology can play such a powerful role. What is the long-term goal? Like, how do you see the company growing, the impact that you're able to have? Certainly this is a really important sweet spot, for lack of a more technical term, as far as what you're doing.
Yes. So we would love to see all Canadians have access to proactive healthcare. And we have created a best in class, best in Canada option for Canadians to access that. I think it is just so exciting to think. I told you I work, my background is in rural primary care. So I have a soft spot for people who have to travel long distances to get any sort of access to care. And Canada's a really big country. So whether you are in Toronto or you are in Cranbrook or you are in the Yukon, you should be able to understand, access, and action evidence-informed preventative care. And that's what we're aiming to do for all Canadians.
And finally, because I think I'm going to get this question if I don't ask you as one of the last questions, people are probably thinking, okay, I think you said it already, but this can work alongside someone's existing wearable device. Also, what does the cost look like? Because of course, that's going to be top of mind for so many Canadians.
Yes. So we have 3 different packages. They're starting at $299. So we've really tried to keep the price point accessible for individuals. And then from there, you can choose a higher price package, or you can kind of build your own adventure and add on things that are the most relevant to you.
And that $299 is, what's the time frame of that?
Sorry, explain to the time frame,
like in terms of $299, is it per year, per month?
Oh, sorry, thank you. Yes, it's per year, and that would include one lap draw, and then of course your dashboard, and then if you want to add on additional things, you can. And I think one important thing is that the wearable devices can be integrated no matter what package you purchase, because that's just a baseline of understanding your health.
I love that. Thank you. Because again, I know people are really interested in access to especially preventative care. And I think if they're already wearing these devices, something like this makes perfect sense for them and can help them in the long run as well. Tanya, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you getting up nice and early and joining us today on the AmberMac Show.
Thank you so much. Next time I am totally coming to PEI with you.
You are always welcome. Thank you.